Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel. Sorry, I was imagining a video was going to come on, but for some reason it didn't. So welcome. We've got a panel on tonight to talk about the Warsaw game, which I'm sure people don't really want to revisit, but it will be good to do. Just a couple of things from me. Matchday draw subscriptions are still available. So we will have them up until Friday. So if you want to do a subscription for the season for Matchday draws, please visit our website and go onto the store, and you can book them there. You can buy them there. Also, our fixture cards, which I have here to show you. So we've got our fixture cards back, men's and ladies, the fixtures on the back. So they will be available for season ticket holders in the Legends. And if I just grab something behind me, we've got our very nice war charts as well available. So they'll be available to season ticket holders in the Legends on Saturday as well. So come and pick your goodies up and put them on your kitchen wall or whatever. I know people have them placed and feel very lost if it's not this season, so pick them up on Saturday. Okay, so let's bring the rest of the gang on. We have Mr. Smith, we have Gus, Rob, we have Ray, and we have Vic. Okay, I'm going to actually leave you now because I know I've got problems with my sound and it doesn't look like Ray's on here. So let me just get Ray back. Sorry. There we go. There we go, Ray. Yeah. Okay, so I'll see you later.
You're on mute, Vic.
We can't hear you.
I'll unmute. How about that? Can you hear me now? Is all good? All good? Yeah, lovely. Right, welcome along to the Monday night panel. We've got sound problems all over the place. But anyway, here we all are. Ray, welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Rob, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Phil Smith, very great to have you on, our former esteemed goalkeeper, of course. And Gus from the good old US of A. Welcome back, Gus. And nice to have you with us at the start of this brand new season. So I guess we ought to start with our trip to the Bescot Stadium, or whatever it might be called these days. I get a bit confused. Can I just read you this email? This is from George, and I thought it was a good place to start. He says, through the summer, there appeared to be a growing expectation amongst some fans that we were going to win the league, and it was just a question of how many points the others were behind. Promotion was guaranteed. There are at least another dozen clubs in this division that think they are destined for at least the top 7, and Saturday showed how far away we are from that. With all that has been put them through this pre-season, they looked underprepared and without a clearly defined plan. I'm sure that will be remedied on Saturday. Phil Smith, what was your impression? Is that a fair summing up, or how would you see it?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think you could be forgiven for thinking or hoping that obviously we were going to progress from the end of last year, because when you think we're only 9 to 10 points off getting in the playoffs, and if we didn't have that awful start, then it would have been a stroll to get in the playoffs almost. So the way that we finished the season. So I think you'd be forgiven for thinking that we'd have that this season is going to be, more successful. And I think obviously it's early days, but yeah, it looked like a stuttery start, and it didn't look as cohesive, I don't think, as we have done. And it's just not quite just a little bit slower paced. So, it was early days and pre-season's only just behind the players. So not completely surprising, but probably obviously not the same standard as we finished at the end of last season, to be honest, but early days still.
Yeah, when you go into the first game, and if you lose your first game of the season, I remember talking to you when during COVID when we won our first league game against Rochdale in League One, and we were for one glorious moment top of League One that very weekend, and then of course we got relegated. So it means nothing, does it?
No, it doesn't. And there's obviously a long way to go. And even when you think of the start of last season, how bad it was, and still ended up only 9 points off. So it doesn't mean a lot. I think it's probably the first time. It's been the first time for a while that we've probably seen a performance that probably wasn't. It was probably the worst performance that we've seen for I don't know, quite a number of games from them, and that's probably why. But then there's a lot of new additions in there as well, so that's probably where the sort of the crash down to earth come, is that obviously the hoping that we're gonna carry on from where we left off last year, and it wasn't quite there. But early day, like a lot of new faces in there, so not completely surprising, but plenty of time to turn it around.
Gus, you were sort of telling us before we started, really, and it's a very good point, that Walsall aren't terrible by any means. And, barring a dreadful collapse in their second half of the season, as opposed to our good second half of the season, they would have romped League Two last year. So it wasn't as if we lost to a very bad team. It was the 10 men, I think, which upset many people, and the fact they had a player sent off so early.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, let me just say thank you for letting me be here. Obviously, I'm the newcomer. I started only watching Swindon Town last Christmas, and so this is my first full season. This is the first time I've, had an opening day game that I got to watch, and that was actually it was a lot of fun. I wish it had been a home game. I will just confess that I thought the team in red was us for the first couple of minutes, so that took me a few minutes to figure out, since most of the players are different players. And it still take me a while to figure out who's who on the players on the field are all, many are different now. So it's taken me a little while to get used to that. But the last thing I think the announcer said as final time was being blown was, we only have ourselves to blame. And I think we only have ourselves to blame. We could have won the game. There were chances, there were times and I think the question that's in my mind is, do we have the players to win games, or are we bad? Are we just a bad team that isn't going to get any better? And I don't think that's the case. We have the players who can do it. We didn't do it. We put 4 balls over the bar. We put 2 into the side of the net, 1 into the side of the net. We equalized in final time, in overtime. And we just couldn't quite pull it out. We looked rough, but I feel like we're going to get better. We're not a terrible team, and Walsall's good.
Fair point, Rob, isn't it? I mean, I think we were all a little bit angry walking away from the ground on Saturday. I know I spoke to you after the game, and you weren't best pleased, I think it's fair to say. What was it that displeased you the most?
Well, I think it's more a case of the classic after the Lord Mayor's show, isn't it? It's the fact that the expectations are set. We've had a reasonable pre-season, albeit against not top quality opposition. And all those ducks in a row from last season, where we looked like we could pretty much go for 96 minutes and beat anybody. But the Achilles heel for us over several seasons now has been, how do we break down 10 men, hasn't it? We've seen it so often. And it's been different managers, it's been different sets of players. And it was almost as if we'd prepared ourselves for a game that we didn't play. We prepared ourselves for a game where we had to battle in midfield against a really good set of midfielders that Walsall have got. And as soon as they lost their defensive midfield player, effectively they had to play a completely different brand of football, which invited us onto them. And it was almost as if we'd not experienced that before. And they had no idea how to go either down the wings, move the ball quickly. That was the worst part about it for me. We were ponderous. Ponderous was the word I used quite regularly during the game. Everything was done at a slow pace. There was nothing done at a quick pace. It was only the introduction of Amin in the second half who started to run at players, which then opened up a few more spaces. But prior to that, we just had been ponderous. We'd gone across the pitch and back across the pitch and never really threatened. You knew eventually the ball was going to be hit long to Harry Smith, because that seemed to be the only play we had. And that was the worry, I think, because last season, okay, Smith was integral. We know he was. He was absolutely critical to the way that we played, and he still will be this year. But you've got to have alternative options. We saw Smith struggle in the warm-up, didn't we? He obviously had a bit of a niggle going into the game. it was almost as if we just had one idea. And the one thing about Ian Holloway's teams at the end of last season was you could throw any number of forwards on the pitch, and they had several different ideas about what they were going to do. And that seemed to have deserted us on Saturday. And I'm certainly not going to throw myself off a bridge from one defeat against a team who lost the playoff final last year, because let's be honest, that's decent quality opposition. There's no doubt about it. And they've made some good additions in the summer wall. So I think people thought they would fall apart again after what happened in the second half of the season. I don't see that. I see them being right up there again. But irrespective of that, we were one-dimensional, ponderous, and we didn't look like we were ever going to get a victory out of that game.
Yeah, what about you, Ray? I mean, you were in the away end. You were sort of seeing it amongst the people who were trying to see it across. I mean, it was very difficult to see in the away end, to be fair. But what did you get from the game? I mean, I think the word pedestrian, it seems to me at times. The ball wasn't moved very quickly. What you wanted to do is to get crosses in, but that didn't seem to appear, did it?
No, and my sentiments are pretty similar to Rob's, really. I think it was too slow, and that confidence, having someone on the pitch that was just willing to go past somebody and have a go, that we didn't really find that. A little bit more when, come on, as Rob said, and I think Tabere shook it up a little bit later on with his energy. But yeah, we were lacking that kind of. Did we get one sort of killer pass forward? There was a lot of sideways passing. I can't remember one kind of attempt at a threaded pass all the way, and that might be movement related, but I couldn't remember one time where that occurred. But yeah, and thinking of the game itself, you probably do all your prep, you set up, and the one thing you don't set up to do is play 10 men, and they just sat right back in. And of course, if pressing's our game and that's what we wanted to be, nicking the ball, that's pretty hard to do when they're banked in. And I think that kind of, we just didn't get over it. And as Rob said, for years we've had this problem. We looked like we were getting over this 10-man problem last year, because we'd have a couple of games where we handled it quite well, but we didn't really get to grips with it on Saturday. I thought, I would have gone home happy with the point once we got back to level, just on the way the game went. So it was really frustrating that we lost it in the end, and that was a perfectly good Saturday evening ruined, really.
Certainly was. Saw a very nice Bentley on the way back. It was a beautiful car, obviously restored, and the gentleman looked very happy driving it down the motorway. It was very nice. Lots of comments coming in. Derek says, seemed naive selection starting with 3 players with no league season. I'm sure we'll be fine, says Sean. As was mentioned by a few, we played all non-league in friendlies, whereas Walsall played league clubs, including Villa. Only mentioned it as what a few were saying. Hi, Rob. Very inexperienced and naive in defence. On that showing, I fear. I think Walsall wasn't even that good. We made them look better than they were. There's another comment here about the behaviour of fans. I will get to that, but at the minute we'll just stick with the game. Woeful shooting let us down. Looking back on highlights, they were 2 soft goals we gave them. That Wall and Ripley's position has to be questioned. Well, we have a goalkeeper with us. So the free kick, for it, Phil, what is your goalkeeper's view of that free kick?
Yeah, I think when you look at it back, how far out it was. The wall was, you might as well not have had a wall, to be honest, because there's 2 in there and he's gone around the inside of the wall, so he's had a clear view of the ball the whole way. He's not gone over the wall, so he's been able to pick his spot in that respect. And I think he'd be disappointed. With that, to be honest. And he got nowhere near it, really. It was a decent strike. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't like a P-roller gone in, but it was a decent strike. But I think probably the distance that it was and where it was, he probably would be disappointed to got beaten by that, considering where the ball's gone. If it's gone through around the inside of the wall, then you're asking questions about where you're putting your wall, how many you're putting in there, and where you're standing, really. If you're not going to have that many in the wall, then you've got to give yourself a little bit more to that near side. But then again, sometimes the managers take a bit of they don't want to, they won't let you have that many in the wall, depending on where it is. Sometimes they'll take a bit out of that as well. But I didn't see any of that. But I think you'd probably be disappointed by how we got beat with that one.
Well, the bare facts are Walsall 2, Swindon Town 1. Brandon Comley was sent off on 21 minutes. The goals from Evan Weir, that free kick on 8 minutes. Will Wright equaliser, the penalty on 79. And then Connor Barrett on 90+1. Swindon Town lined up like this, a 4-3-2-1 formation. Ripley in goal. Snowden, Wright, Wilson, Brown and Munro across the back. Kilkenny, Clark and Oldacre in midfield. Drinnan and Nichols behind Harry Smith up front. Substitutions. Ball came on for Wilson Brown on 66. Amin for Kilkenny on 40. Glatzel on for Drinnan on 46. Tabere or Tabor, whichever you want to prefer, came on for Nichols on 56. And Harry Smith got a yellow on 52 minutes. Oliver Mackey was the referee in charge of the game. The league positions, pointless though that is, except the one that I mentioned to Phil a little earlier when we were top of the league after one game in League One, and that was that. 18th place at the minute, played 1, lost 1, goal difference -1, points nil. Possession, Walsall 26.4%, Swindon 73.6%. Gus, as we've said many times, possession summation, it means nothing, does it? The only one that matters, the only statistic is Walsall 2, Swindon 1.
Yeah, I saw that statistic too, and it didn't surprise me. Obviously, with the red card, so early in the game, you'd expect it. We just kind of be out there picking the ball around in a the perimeter and trying to get it in. I've said before, in American football, you get that kind of thing sometimes where the team that scores 56 points and the other team scores 8 scores the points so fast. They get the ball, they run down the field and score, and then they kick it to the other team who takes a lot of time and never scores. That's how you end up, with winning a game without having a lot of possession. Of course, we didn't win, the game. Sadly, I was watching an interview with Coach Holloway earlier in the week where he was talking about his love for center forwards and how he was using a term that I hadn't heard before, rack 'em and stack 'em, which I think means he likes to have lots of them.
A lot of them
is what he meant. Yeah, that's what I gathered. But none of them scored, right? I mean, I guess it just didn't happen. I mean, we had them, and I just want to call out one thing that I didn't understand. I actually had to look to see if he was still on the team. Last year, we had our last show, and you asked for predictions, and I predicted that Danny Butterworth was going to score. I think I said 25, but I might have said 40 goals because I don't know anything. Where was he's on the team, right? But he didn't play. I thought I think he's one of our better players. I think he's going to have a breakout year. Obviously questioning. It's up to the coach to put people in. It's not our, he knows what he wants. But I was surprised that Butterworth did not play.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it, Rob? Butterworth is a running midfield player. He runs at people. And you would think, he's a sort of player who might have caused tired defenders a few problems. Kilkenny not being there, I note that Ian Holloway said after the game that he might have been the one who closed down the centre forward coming through from midfield, who got the winning goal. So I think he was sort of, in a way, taking a bit of the responsibility, wasn't he, in terms of the Kilkenny substitution. Butterworth, though, is an interesting one, and many people have tipped him to leave, but not yet, as far as I know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of question marks about that team selection on Saturday, and at the end of the day, only Ian Holloway will know what his master plan was, because I don't think we saw it on Saturday. It just didn't really happen. I was expecting Butterworth to be in the 18, not necessarily to start. I think the starting 11, the only question marks I had with it potentially was the fact that we had 3 newcomers in our defensive unit. I thought the rest of the team not necessarily picked itself, but it didn't surprise me. But for the first time, probably, I really did question the substitutions. I didn't think Kilkenny coming off when he did was the right substitution at all, only because he was that one player who gives you legs in the midfield. Oldacre can pass the ball. Nichols will do bits and pieces behind the front pairing. But you never really had somebody who was going to get up and down the pitch, which is what Kilkenny does. And I thought, even though you're playing against a mass defence, you're going to need somebody who's going to break the lines, somebody who's going to make those runs in behind, or even be able to be there to be able to allow the wing backs that little bit more ability to be able to get down the line. Because that was the one striking thing. Again, if you look back at the performance, the number of times we had the ball in wide positions and we just turned back, went back across the pitch and never tried to take a risk, get to that byline, try and take players on. We just never did it. And Harry Smith, for all what he needs a ball in the penalty area in the air for him to be effective, doesn't he? So he doesn't need the ball bombed at him from 80 yards every 5 minutes, especially when you got the size of Aiden Flint against him. He wants the ball coming in from wide positions so he can attack it. And he never really got a decent ball in, apart from the one offside goal at the very back end of the game, which obviously came off a couple of flicks on afterwards. He never got one ball on his head in the entire 90 minutes in a position where he could really threaten the goal. And again, go back to those substitutions again. I can see why Holloway took Kilkenny off. Don't get me wrong. I can see it because I can see that he wanted to get more progressive players on the pitch, and you wouldn't put Kilkenny in that mix. But I think what he was left with in midfield left him completely exposed, and that ultimately came back and bit us on the backside in stoppage time.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. So woeful shooting let us down. Agreed. It seemed to be taking age to work it round. Why are they scared to put crosses in? We did not play bad. Personally, I think the defence and midfield played reasonably well. It was from midfield getting through the ball to the forwards and attacking down the wings and got behind their defence. Just have to be patient. It will come. Hi, Paul. Too much pumping it to Smith, and it just didn't work. They had no plan B. It was like pre-Holloway, Ray. I don't know. Was it Kennedy-ish? Am I over-egging the pudding now? What would you say?
I was thinking back to Chesterfield last year during the game, actually, but it was much worse than that. We hardly went forward at all. I think we got one in Chesterfield game. We got one free kick in their half at the back end. I think it was the first half. We hadn't been forward at all. We played that back, and we were really grim in that period. But at least we were trying to go forward. We were just not that last piece of the jigsaw, really trying to get past someone and whip a cross in. We were trying to go forward, so it wasn't that bad for me. I didn't feel it was quite on that level. But obviously frustrating that we couldn't get the ball across. I think we got the potential to do it because we've seen, I know Snowden, a lot of people have, questioned the game he had really, but he's going to take a bit of time. But we have seen pre-season and even against Eastleigh, he's quite effective at getting either a crossing or a pullback in. If he's got the confidence, he'll get quality into the box, I think, and say it's the same on the other side. So I think, they'll need a little bit settling in, but I'm not giving up on their ability to get decent balls into the box.
Yeah. Aiden Flint, Phil. I mean, obviously you played with him. Some of our fans are giving him abuse throughout the course of the game. It seems to me that it's a pointless thing to do is to abuse Aiden Flint because he just thrives on it, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he would have been buzzing like to, it wouldn't have affected him, and he, like you say, it would be egging him on. He was mopping everything up. He was winning headers. He didn't really look in trouble at all throughout the game, and obviously getting a result. It didn't really help. But he would have been relishing it really, I would imagine.
Yeah, a battle against Harry Smith is a sort of game he would love, I think. And what about that pre-season, Phil? Because obviously people are pointing to the fact, with all due respect, they're playing Melksham, Chippenham, Supermarine and Eastleigh. Would Football League opposition have provided a better test and a better mark?
I think so. I think you always like to have a game or two against higher opposition if you can do. We used to play. I think we always used to have at least one decent team that would come to the county ground, as far as I can remember, and have like a Premiership team or Championship team come in for us to work out against. Gets us used to being at home as well, being on the pitch and just getting that sort of bit of confidence as well. Because if you have a decent result against them, then it's not too bad. I think we've done the season, the Canio season. When you think we played Reading, I think we've done quite well against them. I remember playing against Portsmouth one year. Played Fenerbahce one year as well. And it gives you a little bit, of something to sort of raise your game against, really. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I would always be for playing a team in the higher division in pre-season if you can do. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know how it is nowadays, whether it's as easy anymore, but you would assume that there's plenty of people looking for games, and what sort of standard you get might be an issue. But I'd always be for playing a team in a higher division.
Yeah, I mean, we played Reading in a sort of pre-season friendly, but that was like, I think they played 30-minute spells. So whether you count that as a proper pre-season friendly or not, Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham, I remember visiting the county ground, but of course they've been doing the pitch, so that was a factor this time round that they couldn't play at home. So it'd be interesting to see. Because Alan said our programme of fixtures in pre-season was poor. Only one other EFL club, with the rest being lower opposition down the pyramid. Not good enough. It's only the start of the season, says Sean. We can only get better. I'm sure we will. More promise from the town. Still hopeful. We're very slow. The only one with pace was Amin, and we hardly got the ball to him. Best team won, says Kevin. And I think, Gus, it's all very well for us going on about how bad Swindon were, etc., but you've got to give credit to Walsall, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I asked actually beforehand of you all. Walsall was the best team in the division that didn't get promoted. They had the best record. They had a positive 20 goal point differential last year. They were a good team last year. Presumably, they're a good team again this year. Sometimes when you look bad, I'm thinking about Arizona. University of Arizona basketball. Sometimes they look bad and you think, oh, they had a terrible game. They did, Caleb Love couldn't play. The guys just didn't come to play. And then you think, oh, they played against some really good defenders. They played against, Kansas or somebody, and the other team just played better. They were good, and I think that might've been part of what happened. Not to take away the obvious problems that there were with Swindon during the game as well. I mean, some just complete lapses. There was another thing we haven't even mentioned when there was a breakaway that Connor Ripley did an amazing job getting the ball. He kind of sat on it, but that could easily have been a goal right there early in the game as well. And he managed to pull off a really nice save. Another thing that somebody just mentioned, Botan Amin. When are they going to let Botan Amin be Botan Amin and let him play the game? I mean, it seems like he's on a very short leash out there. He doesn't get to, he doesn't come in a lot. When he goes in, he kind of passes and, he gets open. He can really dribble the ball. And at some point, maybe just say, hey, this time just try to score. Just get out there and show us what you can do for once. I'm afraid that he's going to be with us for a short amount of time, maybe this year, maybe more. And then he's going to go and bloom and be this amazing player. And we just never let him show us what he could do. So at some point, I think they need to just for half a game, just say, forget the extra pass, just see what you can do out there. And, show us if you're as good as we really think you are.
I'll pick that up in a minute. It's a very good point. Ian says, what frustrated me was the constant hoofing towards Smith and didn't use our wing-backs at all. Kilkenny shouldn't have been subbed. It should have been Nichols or Drinnan, who eventually was subbed, of course, and then Nichols was later. Hi, Darren. Please don't talk about the behaviour of a minority. They'll feed off the publicity. Well, we will mention it because I think, sadly, yeah, I get the point you're making, Darren. When we last had a hype thing like this, the season we signed Mooney, etc., we lost our first game, so no panic yet. Also, like you all say, only one game. Let's see, we are in a month or so. Botan Amin, Rob. Bags of ability. He is a player with a future without any question. Do you start him on Saturday?
Again, you're back to this conundrum that I think Ian Holloway is going to have to wrestle with for about 3 or 4 months. He's got a number of forwards who are going to be horses for courses when it comes to what the opposition can do. And where is your best bet to try and get a goal? I mean, we know he's got pace, he's got trickery. It was, you would think on paper, the absolutely perfect opportunity to run at 10 men. But of course, those 10 men were spread all across the 18-yard box, giving him very little space to do anything at all except go out really wide. Unless there was some kind of movement in there to pull the defenders around, there wasn't going to be too many spaces for them to operate in. Walsall just packed their defence. If we think back to the back end of last season, Barrow did it to us. Milton Keynes did it to us. They both put 10 men pretty much behind the ball for most of the game, defended it and got a clean sheet at the county ground. If I look for a blueprint at the moment against the Ian Holloway side, that's the way to play. Play them on the break. If you can get an early goal against them, fair enough. You've got something to defend. If you haven't, just keep it as tight as possibly can, and they will be open at the back at some point. And if they don't score, there's a good chance that you will. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Cambridge come with exactly the same philosophy that the Walsall 10 men did, and just try and shut up shop on Saturday. And if that's the case, Amin must start, because you need somebody with that kind of spark and creativity to be able to break people down. But Gus mentioned Butterworth earlier on. Butterworth would be essential in a game like that as well. Somebody of that ilk to be able to run and do something different towards defenders, rather than rely on high ball to Harry Smith and try and get the bits and pieces off of him. We will need something different on Saturday.
Don't forget Billy Bowden, says Kevin. I assume he wasn't quite fit enough to start.
Yeah.
Hi, Craig. I hope you're all right up there in Scotland. Bit windy and a bit wet up there at the minute, as we've seen on the news. Would any higher division opposition have posted us pre-season? Our pitch wasn't ready, so my guess is no higher league opposition would risk their pitch for a game against lowly us. I think I said tongue in cheek. At least we didn't lose at home to Harrogate, says Ian. I think that might be a bit of a swipe on near neighbours. Even Forest Green went abroad for a pre-season mini tour. Wright was slow at Walsall, so was most of the defence. Gutted Cox got released, and on the same subject, anyone still got George Cox's number? I think we still look short in fullback options. For the life of me, I don't get why Kirkman isn't started. Let's have a look. So much coming in. There's tons of it. Was Smith offside, says Sean. Some saying he wasn't, Ray. What was your view? I mean, I'd love to say wasn't offside, but the goal didn't count anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like England against India today. Fabulous hour of cricket, about as good as you could possibly ever get. England lost. But anyway, that's the way it is. And that's the way it was. He was offside.
Yeah, I've sort of seen people posting that were in line saying it was off. My gut feel it was off as well, frustrating as it was. As you say, it wasn't that easy to see from the away end, but I think he probably was. And he didn't protest hugely himself, so that's probably a good indicator.
Yeah, what was your overall view of Amin, and should he start on Saturday?
Yeah, I think will he start every game this season? I don't think so. I think there's definitely an impact player in him. But then, as I said, I think it is horses for courses a little bit. And my money's on Cambridge being Kenny Jackett being like that, being very dour and sitting in and workmanlike. So I think we will need something to help break them down on Saturday.
Shots on Saturday: Walsall 5, Swindon 16. On target: Walsall 4, Swindon 5. Saves: Walsall 4, Swindon 2. Total passes: Walsall 197, Swindon, Phil, 545. Accuracy: Walsall 116. Swindon 447. I mean, that's an incredible discrepancy in passes. But as I said before, the only statistic that really counts is that one in the scoreline at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting because I think we struggled it quite badly with I think when Flynn was the manager, with we just couldn't break anyone down that sat behind the ball, we hit on the break, defensive mistakes. It was a bit like that on Saturday, and those passes, they don't mean anything. And because Walsall were just letting us have possession, especially in the first half, we were playing right into their hands, playing slow, out in front of them, crossing the ball from 50 yards in. Flint mopping it up, big headers from the back, catching us on the break. Like Gus said, there was a few times there, in the first half that Walsall could break on us, and it still looks like there's gaps in the back, in lapses in concentration. Then it is a difficult thing to do to break them down. But yeah, the passing stats don't mean anything unless you're passing with pace, with cutting edge, where you're risking losing the ball to get in behind. They don't mean anything, in that respect. And that's what they got to be done. Another thing that Gus said about letting the mean be a mean, but the problem is I think with academies, that the way that they set up, and that's the thing, taking a risk It's got to be calculated, and so many things going through the head about, do we need to keep possession, or is this the way that we want to play? But getting in behind, making defenders defend in behind, and where you're getting the risk of a corner, getting the risk of a free kick, a ball in the box, that sort of keeps forgetting. And I think that's what Holloway likes, that sort of style of play. He doesn't want to be in front all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's, that's something that he's taken on board, is that he wants to change, that not liking that way of playing and sort of slow build up around in front of him. Because I think he said after the game, we played into their hands, and that's not what he wants to do, and it was no good. And it did change in the second half, but it just wasn't quite good enough. But there were more meaningful passes, forward-thinking passes, and trying to penetrate and runs going in behind, which was a lot better. But that's what you want. You don't want 500 passes, around your box and without any pressure. That's it's pointless.
Yeah, I remember Liverpool had 93% possession against Sunderland once, lost 1-0, if I remember rightly. So. Yeah. Means nothing, does it, statistically? No. What about communication between the keeper and the back line? I mean, obviously that winning goal, to use the old phrase, parting like the Red Sea, well, basically they did, didn't they? I mean, would there have been shouting going on, any communication, do you think?
You'd like to think so, pulling people around and letting, making people aware of, of runners and picking people up. But it's one of those things. I think it just seems to be a symptom at Swindon where people are just left free and go missing. I think even Wright tried to step up, to play offside, and that's at that stage in the game. I don't think you can. You can't take that risk. You've got to do everything you can to get back and defend that, get something on the ball or put somebody off, and then you turn around afterwards and have a go at everyone else to say, well, where are you? What are you doing? I think it's just that sort of. But yeah, you like to think that they were, trying to pull people around. It just seemed very weird. There was that much space on that side of the pitch, and everyone seemed to be on Swindon's right hand side, and no one really sort of in the middle and over on the left. It seemed, very weird. I know it's a late stage in the game, but you would have liked to think that people should have been, pulling people around in position to stop that sort of thing from happening, really.
Gus, I mean, you were looking at it on the other side of the Atlantic, and I think it was live across America on Paramount Plus as well. So there was hopefully a huge audience in the United States watching Walsall against Swindon. I'm sure there was. But I mean, when it came to the last couple of minutes, what were your thoughts when it was 1-1? Glatzel had a great opportunity which he put over the top of the bar, and you could see when he had his head in his hands how much he was disappointed he missed. What were you thinking?
I mean, I think I actually WhatsApped you during the game. I said, there's no reason to think that we're going to win, but I think we're going to win. I mean, they didn't do anything to make me think that, but I thought we could pull this out. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't do it. Obviously, we didn't. The fact that you mentioned that there were over 500 passes, obviously during the game, I didn't know that. But I'm not at all surprised. I was texting back and forth with my son who goes to the University of Arizona. The game started at 7 a.m. there, and he got up to watch. But as in the second half, Phil explained what was actually happening. I was watching it. I didn't understand exactly, but I kept yelling, do something. Do something. They would pass around down in the corner, and it would either get stolen or they'd pass back to the front, and then they pass down to the other corner over and over and over again. And I guess the question I have, this is so basic, and I don't even know the answer to this. Are there plays in soccer? In basketball and in American football, you have plays. We're going to get the ball to George right in this spot. We got a double screen. He's going to get open. He's going to get fed the ball, and he's going to shoot it or kick the ball or catch the ball or whatever. Are there plays? Because it seemed like there was kind of everybody just kind of kicking the ball around looking for an opportunity that never seemed to come. You need to make. It's interesting you say that. Luck. You can't just hope that you're gonna get a goal. You got to do something to get the goal. Sorry, I was a little. I do yell at the television.
No, it's fine. I spent a few years commentating on the Plymouth Raiders basketball team, and it was interesting during timeouts. The coach gets them there. He has his little playbook, and he's showing, we're going to go post to post, all that kind of stuff. Do you have a playbook, Phil, in professional football? I mean, we see now that they've got these graphs, and they explain into the player when they go on. I mean, we always say up in the stand, you see that white thing with the post, put the ball in there. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but do they have a playbook?
No, yes and no. So I think like with like us is right with American sports, you have a lot more where you have the you can set it up a lot easier in terms of stopping in the game. Like with basketball, you can have your timeouts, you can have the starting from the side, which you do in football. You've got restarts, free kicks, corners, where you have a plan. Start in this area, the old bus stop one, everyone in a line, and then going in different directions. But in terms of like the general game, you'll have the idea of how you want to get around people, and like you say, Amin, get the ball to Amin, let him get on, get around, get crosses in, the old up, back and through type style of playing. So there's bits and bobs like that and how you want to play, but it's very difficult to have like a set formula of how it's going to be in terms of precise. Play it to Smith, play it to Drinan. He sets it to Snowden. Snowden sets it back to the midfielder. He goes back out the other side. He passes in and then crosses. It's very difficult to manufacture that kind of thing in open play. So that's obviously. But then you'd still have the idea you want to get it wide as quick as possible, or get it in behind as quick as possible, or build it up, set it up to Smith. He sets it off. He goes back, back and up, back and through. So have those ideas, but just not so precise. And obviously, if you've got Smith, you want to get balls in the box, in behind, things like that. So, but yeah, like the more the plays, if you like, this is just the set pieces and how you can manufacture it, because it's a dead ball situation where you can manufacture where people are going to be. The open play is very difficult, but you can have an idea.
Yeah, it's interesting, Gus, because we used to mic up the coach, Gary Stronach. I always remember this. And during timeouts, it was fascinating to listen to what they said. And the players obviously knew what he was talking about. We didn't have a clue, but it was great. Anyway, right. Did anyone get flashbacks of how we started with Kennedy last year, says Nick? Well, one positive, Jake Tabere. He absolutely worked his socks, chased everything. A lot of publicity about him, Rob, for the start of the season. Scored some goals in pre-season, obviously. Did work hard on Saturday. Looks as though he's got pace. Has a few tricks. What are your thoughts?
I'm probably at the moment in a different position to a lot of people, because I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's ready for 90 minutes at League 2 standard. I think his job at the moment and his role for probably a month or so, as he gets more familiar to the professional routine, is to come off the bench and play 20 minutes and frighten defenders at the end of games. I think, of no disrespect to him, he might turn out to be the next Charlie Austin. But for me at the moment, he looks very slight physically. He doesn't look like he's yet reached that physical maturity that you need at a top level player at the Football League. I think at the moment he's still a little bit light. He's got bags of promise, as you said. He's got loads of pace. And we've started to see those little glimpses that hopefully he can link up perfectly with the big man, little man combination with him and Harry Smith at times during the game and things like that. But I do think at the moment his role is going to be peripheral. It's going to be coming off the bench and trying to run at defences towards the back end of games. I don't think he's yet in a position where he could really start and play 90 minutes. Maybe he might start and come off after 60, but I don't see him playing a starting role just yet.
Craig says, I can live with that result. Lots of unexpected results on Saturday, but if we lose at home next week, that will be a concern. Jake Tabere, Ray, I mean, I was desperate for him to come on. He came on 56 minutes, and I desperately wanted his first touch to be a little side foot into the post and into the net. That would have been a fabulous moment, wouldn't it? But what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I see him coming off the bench mainly in this first period. He might get longer at Cardiff, you never know. I do think, though, if you look at a couple of shooting opportunities that Clark had and the one Glatzel had, give him those three, one of them goes in. I think he's got it about him. He knows where the goal is. I was really praying that one of those would drop to him, to be honest, because in those cameos at the end of games, I think he will score if the opportunity is there.
Yeah, it would have been fantastic, wouldn't it? Young players coming through. There were a lot of. I mean, Ray, what did you think about the loanees? I mean, Munro looks a tidy player. Wilson Brown certainly does, but they were inexperienced at league level. So, what are your thoughts at that?
Yeah, exactly that. It just needs a little bit of bedding in. Really, it's a lot to ask. I think Munro had a reasonable season in Spain last year, didn't he? And I think you could see that he was a little bit ahead of Snowden on Saturday. Just my opinion. And Wilson Brown looks a good player. I think the thing he's going to have to adapt to is the aerial bombardment in League Two. I thought their centre forward was a handful for us, and I'm looking across and thinking who's actually going to get it away with their head. Because I know Ollie Clark's not too bad in the air, but we were lacking that dominant force in the air. I felt Wilson Brown's not bad in the air, but that's the bit I think he's really going to have to get used to. He's quite tidy, he's quick, and he's tidy on the ball.
Talking of young players, I thought I'd give you the result of the academy at the weekend. Tottenham 4, Swindon 1. George Alston got the goal for the academy on 33 minutes, and they actually led at half-time, but Tottenham went on to win 4-1. And well done to the women's team. They beat Pucklechurch 9-0 in a pre-season friendly. Annie Colston got a hat-trick. Of course she did. Cook got 2. Mead, Clark, Trialist A scored, and Davis. So we're 5-0 up at half-time. How lovely to hear the term Trialist A. How we love that phrase. Fantastic. And some SAS travel news. Now, they've had a couple of cancellations for Cardiff. If anyone is interested, it departs the county ground at 4 p.m, West Swindon at 4:15, and members £20, non-members £22. Now, Oldham is full. They need a lot more interest for a second coach and need to know by Thursday. So if you want to go to Oldham on a bus, get in touch as quickly as possible, and they might be able to get a second bus, but they need a bit more interest. They leave West Swindon at, get this, 6 o'clock a.m, the county ground at 6:30 a.m, members £29, non-members £31. It's a 12:30 kickoff for that one, of course, hence the reason they're leaving so early. Terrible first half performance, second marginally better against 10 men. It's the first game. Let's see how they do on Saturday. It showed we played lower non-league in pre-season. Right, Phil, home on Saturday. Is there extra pressure now, or is it just the start of a season again? Does Ian Holloway say, right, we start again, forget Saturday, on we go?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the longer it goes on, then the harder it gets. But there won't be too much. Obviously, now I think obviously they want to put it right. A lot more kind of excitement in the game, I think. So they want a little bit more like what they had at the county ground last year, where you felt like anything could happen at any point in the game, and they were never out of a game. Towards the end of last season. So they want that atmosphere back, as quickly as possible for the new players to feel that atmosphere as well at the county ground. So I'd expect him to want a fast start, and then obviously they can put that behind it, and then as quickly as bad as it sort of feels now, for that performance, it's so quickly forgotten. With a decent performance on Saturday, which is not going to be. It's not going to be easy because Cambridge will be a decent team. Kenny Jackett's a decent manager. I think my old mate Barry Corr's still there. I hope he is. So he's, I know that they'll be, looking to do well this year. So, it's going to be, it'll be a tough game.
Yeah. Gus, I've just mentioned the Oldham game, 12:30 kickoff. What time's that for you? That's 7:30. Is that right?
It's 5 hours difference. Yep. 5 hours earlier for us.
What are you hoping to see on Saturday at a decent time of 10 o'clock in the morning for you? What are you hoping to see on Saturday?
Well, I listened to Coach Holloway after the game, and I was heartened by what he had to say. It might have been a little bit too rosy, but he was not panicking. As I think Phil or Rob said, we didn't play very good teams in the preseason, so maybe he didn't know what he had. And if anybody can pivot, and if anybody can get the most out of their players, it's him. I think he knows it's a long season. I think we have a good chance to win, obviously. And I think if in Coach Holloway we trust until he gives us a good reason not to at this point. Also, somebody mentioned, or Vic, you mentioned that you get special discounts if you're a member of the Swindon fan club.
Yes.
Everybody listening should be a member of the Swindon fan club. Every member of my family is. So they should go online and get a fan club membership for £5. And we are anxiously awaiting our cards in the mail.
Marvellous. Don't forget, season ticket holders, you are an automatic member of the official supporters club. But if you think a £5 donation every time you travel on SAS, you get a reduction. Good commercial. Like it, Gus. You can tell you're from the States because commercials are king, aren't they? Very good. What are you expecting, Rob, Saturday?
Another tough game. The one thing that Gus has just alluded to, which is absolutely right, is that we've got a manager that learns quickly. This is not going to be Mark Kennedy Mark II. This is not going to be we play the same way, we play plan A, we play plan A again, and until plan A fails, we'll carry on with plan A. This is going to be a different game. And he will have learned a lot of lessons about his side on Saturday, I'm sure. And there will be no doubt whatsoever in my mind there will be an awful lot going on that training pitch this week. So I'm fully expecting to see a different shape to the way we play. It will still be use Harry Smith as your battering ram if he's fit, but I expect to see us play a different style of football. And of course, naturally, against 11 is going to be a different game. There will be a bit more, it sounds odd to say it, but there will be a bit more space on the pitch because you won't stick 10 men behind the ball every time you go forward. There will be other gaps to try and exploit because the other team will try and come forward a bit more than Walsall did. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. But I said in that in our summaries a couple of weeks before the season started, our start to this season is a very, very awkward one. You play two teams who were in the playoff mix. You play two teams who've been promoted, and you play two teams who've been relegated. So you've got teams there that really are all bubbling in a completely different way to try and get at you. And at the moment, unfortunately, Swindon have proved again they've still got a soft centre in defence, and you can bet your bottom dollar that there will be an awful lot of work going on that Cambridge training pitch at the minute to say how can we exploit them again. So we've got to prove that defence is good enough, and those young players have really got to stand up now. If they're going to form our defensive unit this year, then they've got to prove themselves. I would, at the moment, the mention of Billy Kirkman earlier on, I would certainly start Billy Kirkman on Saturday.
Yeah. Ray, what are you expecting? I've got a text, a message here. Definitely need the county ground atmosphere. Darren says, sadly, missing the game. See you all at Cardiff. What do you hope? I mean, we had fabulous atmospheres at the end of last season, didn't we? I mean, you go for the Bradford City game, for goodness sake, Wimbledon, Tranmere. We had some wonderful days and wonderful evenings. We need that sort of atmosphere again.
Yeah, we do, and you just hope that we are on the front foot. Really, that's the key thing with it, and that we don't, as a fan base, we don't panic really as well, because it's, it can turn negative very quickly. I think we've got to remember it's early days, and I think if we are on the front foot, he has kind of reflected on this past Saturday, and we are going for it. I think crowd will stay with them, and so I'm expecting that we have a good go. Will it be enough? We'll see on come 4:45 on Saturday really, but I'm expecting us to have a go, certainly.
Is it a disaster if we lose?
It'll be frustrating. It's not a disaster, but it'll be frustrating. You just don't want it to build, do you? Because we took over 2,000 people up there on Saturday. There is anticipation. People want to watch again, and what you don't want to do is lose that kind of feel good factor early in the season. You want a few wins along the way to keep everybody on board, really.
Yeah, the dressing room, Phil, needs a win, doesn't it, as soon as possible in the season? Because otherwise, the longer you go in the season, I guess the mood in the dressing room changes.
Yeah, it just becomes harder to get the first win, doesn't it? I think that's the more attempts you have, the harder it becomes. In that respect, and everyone will be obviously hopeful to get it. Obviously, new signings will want to prove themselves, have that feeling of winning. And obviously, there's nothing better than that, and at home as well. And like you're saying about the atmosphere, so they'll want to get that as soon as possible. They want to put obviously last week behind them as well. So yeah, they'll be desperate to get a win. And I think it will be. I think what's been good recently, especially with the new managers, is that there's like a more of a refresh, I think, when for games, and nothing's really kind of lingering so much. So we go from game to game, and I think the end of last season showed us is that it's not just a rinse and repeat. That if Swindon go behind, then that's it. They're gonna really gonna suffer. They'll keep going until the end, and I think that sort of come out in a way that obviously they'll have a refresh on Saturday. Everyone will be, like Ray said, hoping for Swindon to be on the front foot. I think that will happen. I think they'll get behind the team, and I think it will be completely different atmosphere really to the way it was on Saturday.
Brilliant. This is from John. Are you ready for this, Rob? Can't criticise too much. This is on the subject of Saturday because they didn't go on Saturday. British Lions. They got beat, I think, didn't they? But good to see Ray still got his executive box, and Rob is putting more effort in. Nevertheless, it looks like Phil has moved into Rob's spare room because you got no shirts up, Phil. This is why. And Gus has not been briefed with regards filling his delightful house with Swindon Town paraphernalia and a few XTC albums. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the music of XTC, but if you can get a few of their records, John would be delighted. Right. Now, obviously, sorry, have I missed something? Keep hearing the name Kenny Jackett in connection with Cambridge this evening. Isn't their head coach Neil Harris? Anybody wants to that?
I don't know. I heard you say it was Kenny Jackett, so I'm going to have a look now.
Okay.
I've got a feeling it's Neil Harris.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Neil Harris then. Whatever.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. And then you said Kenny Jackett, and I was like, oh, Kenny Jackett's the manager, is he? Yeah. I didn't fact check you, Vic.
Okay, I think it is because in the story about Harry Smith, because Neil Harris was his old manager, and they was linking him to Cambridge. I think it's Neil Harris.
Oh right, okay. Anyway, now there was a dark side on Saturday, and this is from Alan. Hi, Alan. Thanks very much, Steve, for your message. I said I would mention it. I will. I was at the match on Saturday, and the seats inside the ground with the seat being thrown wasn't good by any means. On the train from Birmingham to the Bescott Stadium, I was joined by a number of Town fans. They were drinking alcohol and singing a song out loud about the passing of Joey Beecham, who sadly passed away by taking his own life. I was absolutely sickened to the core that human beings, supposedly Town fans, were chanting such a vile song in front of a packed train. That's a shame on those it involved. There was a song about Aiden Flint, I think, as well, on Aiden Flint on Saturday, too. I know, Gus, you weren't there, so it'd be unfair to ask you to comment on what was happening inside the ground. But, Rob, what were your thoughts on it? I mean, it's something we have to mention because it happened, and there's no running away from it.
It's extremely sad. It spoiled a day that wasn't going well on the pitch anyway. But anything that brings our football club into disrepute, whatever it might be, whether it be ownership, whether it be on the pitch, whether it be off the pitch, for me is extremely sad. And this minority of people who, quite rightly, people have said don't mention them, but you can't ignore them because they bring your club into disrepute. And it should never happen. I get that people get over excited is probably the wrong description, but you know where I'm coming from about certain events and certain players. We don't need it. We don't need it in the game. I thought we got rid of this a few years ago. I really, really did. And to see the likes of a chair being broken and thrown at a goalkeeper, I mean, what goes on in somebody's mind that they would do something like that at a football match? I just don't understand.
Stevenage a few years ago.
Totally. I just don't understand it, Vic. And yeah. I suppose you have to be in that mindset to be able to understand it. The reality is 99% of the Swindon fans will have absolutely been appalled by that behaviour. And Ian Holloway rightly criticised that person and those people, whoever they might be. Everybody who's right-minded with a Swindon persuasion wouldn't want to see that behaviour ever again at a football club.
Malcolm says, this is an opportunity for the panel to endorse the club request to name and shame if they know anything. So we'll leave that open. I mean, what's your view, Ray? I mean, you know, there were 2,169 people there on Saturday supporting Swindon. You know, whatever your view on the game, it's a game, right? And the Stevenage behaviour a few years ago was disgusting. What was your view on Saturday?
Yeah, it's does my head in, to be honest. It's just moronic behaviour from, you know, a couple of individuals. No one's talking about 2,200 people making the trip, which is brilliant for League Two. No one's talking about that. They're just talking about this chair throwing idiot. It's it's ridiculous. There's no place for it, and I really do hope that there's footage of it, and that person gets some time away from the club and reflects on what they've done.
The idiot who threw the flare could well have cost us the game, says Daz. Scored the penalty. We had them on the rack. Flare was thrown on the pitch. Game was stopped for a while. Took the momentum out of the game. Suited Walsall, not us. The rest is history. Rob says, tongue-in-cheek, I didn't see any flare on the pitch. Very good. Those
Vic,
idiots.
Sorry, Vic. Just briefly, I should confess it was me, the Kenny Jackett thing. I was thinking back to the Orient link with Harry Smith. So it's me that threw that wild card in there. It is Neil Harris.
I'll just make a note. Right?
Yes.
These idiots seem to turn up whenever we take 1,500 plus away. I've heard accounts of vile racism on Saturday too. I wasn't there, but I would challenge this if I heard it. I don't know, Phil. You've been around the game a long, long time. We all have. And I kind of just think, what is it about football? What is it?
It's there's just that culture of the bravado, like the one-upmanship type thing. That the just that it's one of those things that I can't comprehend really. With that you're so emotional and get so angry about another football club beating or playing against or trying to beat your football club, that you can do these sort of things. But then if the other people that you're so angry about didn't do what they were supposed to do, you'd have nothing to love or nothing to be passionate about, because there isn't anything there. There isn't any emotion. You've just got you're just playing against, must be playing against 11 mannequins. You've got nothing, but then they'll want to risk seriously hurting somebody. They'll want to risk going to prison. They'll want to risk, kids' safety. And just I don't understand. I don't understand it really. And it's just that sort of, oh yeah, but I love my club and I love them more than you love your club. And it's just like I don't understand it, and it's just something that's never sort of I can't get my head around it, that you'd want to do that sort of thing, and you, because you feel like you've maybe in a group of people that think that feel the same, that it becomes okay, but it really doesn't. And it's been like that for decades, for as long as you can remember, where you get a group of people together, egg each other on. There's a bit of an anonymity in it, if that's the right way to pronounce it, where mob mentality. If you've got 20 people, one of them says something or does something, they get away with it because they'll be hidden by their others, and I'm not into that either. It's like you shouldn't, this naming and shaming. I think that's the way it should be. You shouldn't allow people to get away with that sort of stuff, because it brings everything down. I think that's a problem with society nowadays, where you sort of hide people away, and allow them to get away with things that they shouldn't really be able to do just because considered a grass or whatever. They should be put out there, and then that's the only way to stop it. You find the people that do it, put them up, get them out, and let everyone else know that if they get caught doing the same thing, then the same will happen to them.
Would like to take my grandson to a game, not a chance, says Kevin, and that's a real shame. Adrian said, should praise for 2,100 plus rather than concentrate on one moron. Top fans let down by a poor display. Do you get this in American sport, Gus? I mean, I don't. I've been to a few games in America, football matches, and obviously the distances involved prevent a lot of away fans going, don't they? So, but do you get this problem?
I mean, I think it probably happens everywhere to some extent. There are people do stupid things everywhere, unfortunately. The distance here in the U.S. does help. If you're a Chicago fan and you're playing somebody in Los Angeles, it's a 37-hour drive. You're not going to be going there. But there are occasionally fights. There are definitely cases where people throw things occasionally. There was a case not too long ago where a team that was affiliated with a religion, or a school was affiliated, had religious affiliation. A bunch of the fans were yelling something that was extremely offensive. And there's absolutely no excuse. There's a single person on the team that wants you to do that, and there you are doing it. Alcohol often has a lot to do with this. It makes everybody a real hero, right? I don't want to comment on, on your and the team, but it does unfortunately happen a lot of places, and it needs to be dealt with and stopped as much as humanly possible.
Well, thank you all very much for that. I mean, it's a difficult thing to have to comment on. It would be wrong of us to ignore it, although I do take the point that we shouldn't focus on one incident or maybe two incidents. There was a flare on the pitch, other things were thrown as well. And as I said, you go back to Stevenage, don't you? And you remember that particular situation. Please stop. That's all I can say. Here's to Saturday. Cambridge United at home, 3 o'clock kickoff. Let's get 3 points for the town. Come on, you Reds. That's a bit better, isn't it? Hiya, Chris.
Hello. Exactly. That's what we should all be thinking about. Unfortunately, I won't be there to do that, but hey, that's okay. And I think we just need to...
Right, where are you on Saturday then?
I'm actually dog sitting for somebody, so I can't be there, but it's another story. But I think our heartfelt feelings do go out to all the Morecambe fans at the moment who are going through a terrible situation. It looks dire for them. So we're all with you. So hopefully it'll sort itself out. But at the moment,
yeah, Chris, spot on.
It can't seem to be. But so thank you very much, guys. Thank you as always. And Vic and I will be back next week. I think, or it might be Ray even and Vic. We'll see. To review the Cambridge game. So we'll see you then. And as the video didn't play at the start, we'll play it now. So we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.